Hey, I just wanted to join in on your discussion here. Um, Never posted a video on YouTube before, but when my friend told me about this discussion you guys were having, I was pretty struck. I just couldn't imagine how cool it is that people would be having a conversation about spirituality on YouTube, which is usually like for, I don't know, funny videos of people hitting each other with shovels and stuff. And I guess that this the main thing I wanted to say is how um, it seems incredibly significant that this conversation is happening like on the internet. Two people who don't know each other now. I'm getting in. I've never met either of you. There's all these people writing comments, and everybody's writing because they're interested in spirituality. They're interested in life. Um, and the fact that that's happening seems pretty cool. Seems pretty miraculous almost. And I was also thinking, because both of you have like an evolutionary perspective of spirituality, which I share as well. And one of the characteristics of what the next evolution in spiritual community should be is that um, people with similar interests are actually coming together and not just practicing their spirituality on their own in isolation, but are actually like communicating with each other and putting it out into the world. Um, so it's just really cool to like recognize that what's happening here in between you two and now me and all the people watching these videos and all the people commenting on them is actually part of like a larger movement, part of um, having these spiritual motivations be expressed through YouTube, but really being expressed through different people who are all part of an emerging worldview. Um, that seems, I don't know, it's hard to describe exactly what's so special about it, but it seemed to be something very unique that I've never really seen before, and it seems like something that we should really try to cultivate. I'm definitely this is the first time I've ever done this before, posting anything online. Definitely want to do it more and try to, I'll get as many people involved as are interested. Um, in more direct response to the things you guys have been saying, of a couple small things though. I've gotten out the biggest stuff I wanted to say. Um, One thing that struck me, I was really interested in what you were talking about with education, and when I first read Ken Wilber and like Spiral Dynamics, and like the different levels of education, I was starting to think like how could you create an education system um, that teaches people like according to these different levels. So I was like trying to like think like you get one level and the next, and like you make different curriculum and different pedagogy for each level. And then I met some people who are trying to bring kind of spirituality into the classroom in a new way with an evolutionary perspective. And I was really struck by what they're doing isn't actually um, this teaching like according to levels, which I still think is important. But what they're trying to do is teach people, teach the students. This one teacher is teaching third graders, and it's a teaching about going beyond ego and taking responsibility for yourself. And so I was just thinking that's something that that must be like is absolutely necessary in any sort of new education system that embraces spirituality. Is not just like showing people how consciousness evolves, but showing people how they're a part of it and how like that's just how you have to be. How you have to see how your own choices fit into the education you're creating in the classroom that you're in. Um, so yeah, I thought that was interesting. Um, Another thing that I was interested in was in this like the greatest fallacy of of technology. I was I definitely agree that that we often that I really liked what you were talking about with kind of taking the like the cover off the computer to see that it's all like made of its constituent parts. It's like a whole process is what's created the computer, but at the same time, I think that rather than using that as a reason that computers are some way less than nature, that the truth is that that's exactly what we look like. That if you like take the cover off of us, we're no different um, in terms of having been created through a process than the computer. And so there's nothing less natural about a computer than there is a tree. Like you were talking about how like a computer is like an instrument that we created, that we invented. Um, but in the same way, like if you think of a tree, a leaf is just an instrument for the tree, but you don't think of a leaf as being unnatural, even though it's just like created for the tree. Um, I think there's definitely some issues in what I'm saying, and that like a tree is dependent on the leaf, and we're not as dependent on on a computer, and also that there is some more lifelike consciousness to internal consciousness to a tree or any living being. Um, but I think, and I think you were saying this, Phil, that like everything has some sort of internal experience, and so I don't know. That was just something I was noticing. This kind of, you can't think of human creation as being unnatural. Um, uh, I guess the last thing that I wanted to talk about was I also was thinking with this distinction between what happens like academics and spirituality, or like the distinction between synthetic and analytical thought. I think that there's a difference between synthesis and analysis, like a difference between construction and deconstruction. But at the same time, any sort of thought or any sort of construction is always a deconstruction of something else. In the same way that like any sort of science is also its own religion, and any spirituality is also some sort of science, but just based off of different premises. So rather than thinking about trying to create a balance between these two different things, I think it can be helpful to try to think about what value each one has, and that they're not actually, like, to try to see in some way that they're not as separate as we normally think, and to try to bring them together. Um, I don't think I'm necessarily disagreeing at all with what was said before, but I don't know, just to see that they're both inherently linked to each other. Um, so great. I hope this spurs more discussion. It's really cool what's happening. Um, I don't know if it's like been going on a lot before. I've never really checked out the like YouTube spirituality scene before, but it's pretty cool. So I'm excited to see what can happen in the future. Thanks.